Well, who would have thought that we would be discussing basketball a second day in a row on an off podcast day? But lo and behold, your wonderful Sixers decided to give us something to talk about and blow a 26-point lead and give up 40 in the fourth quarter. So I will let you open up because that is your team. I know you're a Miami Heat fan, but Sixers too. So I will give you the floor first.
Yeah, I am so glad we're on the show right now because I need to vent this built up anger that I have from watching that game last night. Everything was going so well. But honestly, even before the fourth quarter, in the third quarter, when I saw them bring it down from the 20s to like 13-ish, I was like, I don't like where this is going. Early in the fourth quarter, I think that's when they had brought it into single digits, but the lead was still fluctuating. I was so frustrated. There are many things we could point to. I've heard like the analyst pointing out Doc Rivers because they've been reporters have asked him to close out games. Why don't you bench Ben Simmons because they're gonna hack him and put him at the line? So I guess if we're gonna hold Doc Rivers accountable for the one thing is like maybe not making enough adjustments because in a way you can argue he's making the same mistakes Brett Brown made in the past, but I don't give him the lion's share of the blame. Tobias Harris, who I believe and I think you probably agree is the second best scoring option on the Philadelphia 76ers. A guy has a huge contract on the team as well. Averaged like 20 something points per game this year. Average last night shot 2 for 11 of the field. Couldn't get a bucket. He scored one basket in the first half and one in the second half. He looked Paul George-esque from last year. Taking dub shots, getting the shots blocked. It was just horrendous. Shout out to Seth Curry though. He stepped up big time. If anything, he was the real MVP last night for the Sixers, backing up Embiid with a 30. Yeah, he had 36 points, I think, something like that. And again, we don't anticipate that kind of play for Seth Curry, so that's a player that elevated his play, unlike everyone else around him. Ben Simmons, I don't even think I even need to say a word about him because nobody expected him to score points to begin with. That's why getting Seth Curry was such a big deal because we wanted Simmons being a less of a focal point scoring wise, but even his playmaking was practically non-existent. Especially since when we bring the ball up the floor, he's getting hacked and sent to the free throw line and can't bury one. And if defense wasn't good enough last night, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get stops, you got to be able to get some points on the board too to win. And now, my biggest problem is with the big man himself, Joel Embiid, who, as Evan knows, is my favorite center. So I think this is evidence enough that I'm an objective fan. Joel Embiid was having a monstrous game. I was so impressed because in the first half he had like um he scored I think it was the high 20s and he was shooting like somewhere around a ballpark number 80% for the field. Like I was saying this is insane. Like he was not missing like he was like maybe only missed like one or two shots early in the game. And I was impressed. But then of course, as I've said before, when Embiid the first parts of the game, like the first three quarters, a monster, but that fourth quarter, he cannot close. That's the main reason why, as an Embiid fan, I call Jokic the best center in the NBA because of that. Jokic closes games, Embiid doesn't. Embiid sells the lead. I was so frustrated. Seeing him. Yeah, the, sometimes he gets the ball in a good situation, enough space, he either takes too long to do something with it, or he forces up a contested jump shot, and he's being guarded by Clint Capella, who is an excellent defender, but Embiid is bigger, taller, stronger, more athletic than him. He should have been bullying Capella down in the post like he was earlier in the game, but he kept trying to do all of these fadeaway jump shots like he's Kobe. I was so frustrated with that. Getting shooting over double teams, like he was playing like Julius Randle in the last round, essentially. Like clearly, he took a page out of the New York Knicks book. Embiid did not only scored one basket in the fourth quarter, I believe. and that basket was at the 7 minute mark. So he did not score the ball at all in the last 5 minutes. Unnecessary turnovers, taking bad shots, missing easy scoring opportunities for passing out the post to his teammates. Like I blame this loss on Embiid's meltdown. Oh, I can't believe I forgot this because this really got ingrained into me last night. Like I felt someone burned me, branded this into my brain. He went to the free throw line and missed both free throws. Like if he made those two free throws, the Sixers would have been down by one, and they would have still had a chance. He misses both, and then the Hawks will score on the other end. I can't. I can't.
So, uh, since you outlined most of the Sixers' mistakes, I'll briefly go over it. I do think Embiid late in the game is part of the reason why they lost, but for someone that shouldn't be even playing in the playoffs, because most players probably wouldn't be playing with a partial meniscus tear, um, he's still at 37, and I know those free throws were crucial, but someone else I know on your team missed over 10 of them. So I think that
Yeah.
someone who is in the NBA and is supposed to facilitate and is gonna be fouled a lot needs to begin to make free throws. I mean, Ben Simmons, regardless of what you think of him, his defense, facilitating, we know he's capable of scoring. You know, it may not be shooting, but he's capable of scoring, and he needs to have more confidence and do that. He can't just pass every play because he's getting hacked. He's gonna have to get used to the foul line, and he's gonna have to get used to driving the lane more and just trying to find buckets, even if he's hacked, because he's gonna just have to learn how to make free throws. Um, but I want to give massive props to Seth Curry because his development over the last few years, he's becoming a borderline all-star almost, and it's been enjoyable to watch. I know he's not as good as his brother, that's what everyone will say, but he's a great player, and I admire that. Tobias Harris, on the other hand, has chosen to regress in the playoffs for no reason. He decided not to show up this game, and I think that was a definite reason why um, they lost. But outside of that, let's not talk about the Sixers from my end because you already talked about them. I'm going to give some credit to the Hawks for their comeback. They scored 40 in the fourth quarter. I think John Collins played really well. He had like 20 points, I believe.
Yeah,
Trey
20
Young,
and like 11 rebounds still.
Trey Young was Trey Young. He scored 40 points. That was magnificent. Not much to say there. However, I do want to note that Lou Williams is getting more minutes each game now, and there was a point where he was almost kind of falling out of the rotation with like DeAndre Hunter. But now DeAndre Hunter's hurt and out for the playoffs, so I think that Lou Williams is finally able to get some more minutes. And the former sixth man of the year, I think he scored like 15. I think was a big
Yep.
impact for the team.
Mhm.
But
And Gallo also.
Gallinari too, yeah, he
Yeah.
played really well. I mean, it just comes down to, I think the Sixers, sure. I mean, the Hawks shot the lights out in the fourth quarter, but I think that they also played lazy defense for three All NBA defenders, right? I think. I mean, that's unacceptable.
Two, two, I think.
Okay, two.
Yeah. Yeah.
But either way, unacceptable. You can't be giving up 40 points in the fourth quarter with that high expectations. And I do think Doc Rivers is part of the blame. Um, because we've seen this before. We saw it with the Clippers too. He's got to be willing to make adjustments. You can't just play people under the impression that they're going to show up and play like their normal season self. You got to make adjustments to people who are hot during the game. If you got to bench Ben Simmons for a couple minutes, you got to bench Ben Simmons for a couple minutes. You got to do what it takes to win the game. You can't focus on keeping his confidence or boosting his confidence by keeping him in the lineup. You have to do what it takes to win the playoff game. It's a team. It's not one player.
Yeah.
It's a team, so you
Yeah.
got to do whatever it
All,
takes to win.
all he's doing, if anything, is boosting Ben Simmons' ignorance and reluctance to shoot a ball because that's what he's been getting away
Yeah.
with.
So with that said, shifting from Doc Rivers, let's talk about the Clippers and Jazz last night. I want to give. I've been roasting Ty Lue for the longest time, but I'm going to give him some credit because I think he's finding lineups that work really well against the Jazz. He had Terrence Mann replace Kawhi Leonard, which I thought was a little bit controversial because it's a very small lineup. You have Terrence Mann, I think it was Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Paul George, and Nick
Nicholas
Batum.
Batum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Batum played over 40 minutes too. But it worked really well. It was a small lineup, but it worked really well. They knew that Rudy Gobert was going to be a problem, so they just chose not to address it, not deal with him down low, and they were going to play perimeter, and they were going to find other holes in the defense to score. So to Ty Lue's credit, I thought that was really well set up. Paul George deserves a ton of credit because he scored almost 40 points. No one expected them to have a chance of winning this game without Kawhi. Uh, Not to mention good games from Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson's been consistent all playoffs, but Marcus Morris these last 3 or 4 games has really showed up compared to earlier on in the playoffs. Um, Terrence Mann played pretty well for filling the gap. I think he had like 10 points, but he shot pretty well and he was efficient. So I think that matters. Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to add in regards to the Clippers. I don't think so. The Jazz, however, Donovan Mitchell, if we're going to call him a superstar, he's going to be held accountable as a superstar. So shooting 6 of 20 and only scoring, I believe, 21 points as the superstar of your team is not going to do it. I think Bogdanovich ended up carrying the team with 32 points or something around there. And that's great and all, but Donovan Mitchell, I guarantee you if he has 32 and he plays a little bit better, they win that game any day of the week. And he simply didn't show up because everyone else played pretty well. Jordan Clarkson played well. Rudy Gobert played well. Bogdanovich played well. I'm not sure about Joe Ingles, but everyone else played pretty well. So it's tough to me to see that they lost that game with without Kawhi Leonard on the other side. But it is what it is. I think that we all expected the Jazz to go up 3-2 here, and now we're seeing the Clippers are going to be going home for a chance to advance to the Western Conference Finals. So that'll be interesting because Ty Lue with Paul George alone might make it there.
Who knows? Maybe Kawhi and Uncle Dennis were the problem.
Maybe. You
Yeah.
what do you got to say about the series?
Yeah, and same thing. Donovan Mitchell, like that's really what it came down to. That's the reason why they lost. Donovan Mitchell played poorly. Like he had 21 points, but yeah, only like 6 for 20 shooting. Like that's not gonna cut it. I just looked up Joe Ingles. That he played okay. He had like 12 points, shot 4 for 8 for the field, but he shot 1 for 5 from the 3 point line. He's one of their main 3 point shooters, if not their best shooter. Well, debatable between him and Bogdanovich, but he's one of their sharpshooters, so he needs to be shooting at a better rate than that for them to be successful. Gobert was being Gobert, rebounding, shot blocking, and he backed him up with 17
I would say he
points.
scored more than usual.
Yeah,
I I will say that the Jazz, regardless how many times they made the playoffs, I feel like they're almost inexperienced in a sense where, unlike most teams who, if they're not playing well at the 3 point line, they could readjust and do a different style of play to potentially come back. But they consistently tried to shove 3 point balls down, and they were just missing. So I
it's
think you
also
have
the
to find a
makeup of
new
their team.
what?
It's also the makeup of their team.
Yeah,
Like literally, it's that's how they thrived all year. Donovan Mitchell, like named the ball, scoring himself and facilitating. His facilitating, but primarily driving and kicking out to shooters.
I
So they're gonna live or die by that.
I would have liked to see them adjust to Donovan Mitchell. I know Jordan Clarkson usually doesn't touch the court at the same time as Donovan Mitchell, or if they do, it's a small amount of time. But I would have liked to see them a little bit more together instead of Engels with Mitchell because I feel like they probably could have worked the mid range way better than just trying to stay behind the 3 point line.
You know how the NBA is nowadays. Oh, no mid range shot.
Yeah, mid range isn't allowed; it's
Yeah,
off the table. But
yeah. Especially if you play for D'Antoni.
I mean, I'm excited for games. I don't think there's any way the Jazz lose Game 6. I don't think they'll let that happen again. I think it'll go to Game 7, so it's going to be on the Clippers to win. in Utah, which is going to be extremely difficult. But they just did it, so um,
Yeah, I agree.
I
But
I don't know.
I agree with that totally. And now tonight, we sure got an interesting one. The Bucks and the Nets.
I
I am predicting the Bucks winning tonight.
I I'll say it again. I said it. I think the last recording. Giannis is going to score over 40 tonight or 40. I think that this is going to be his biggest game of the series.
Mhm.
Uh, I do think that it's going to be closer than it should be. I think that the Bucks and Nets will be close. So I think that Giannis could lose tonight with scoring 40. But I think it all really depends on how James Harden is. If he's going to play, the unhealthy player like he was last game, where he's just kind of sitting in the corner most of the game, or if he's going to be feeling a little bit better, more in rhythm, and making shots. If James Harden shows up, then I think the Nets are going to win the game. But if James Harden's like he was last game, the Bucks win.
As for Kevin Durant now, realistically, yeah. Oh yeah, this is the perfect time to say this. Kevin Durant heard me. Oh, when I said PJ Tucker locked him up, so he had to answer me. So Sean motivated Kevin Durant
Uh
to
huh.
into playing his greatest game ever in his postseason career. So yeah, I'm the real MVP for that. But
Okay.
anyway, if the Bucks are gonna have a chance tonight, obviously they're not going to shut down KD, but what I believe they can do, I think they can prevent another near 50-point game performance. I think it's fair to say they can hold them to 30.
I I think that Giannis should guard KD for maybe a half. I don't think the entire game because you don't want him to foul out from KD drawing
Yeah.
fouls, but I
I
think
say
at least
fourth
a half.
quarter. I
Um,
say the fourth quarter.
and I definitely think that you're gonna need. I mean, Giannis can maybe rival KD for the game, whether they score the same amount of points or not. Who knows? But you need someone else on the Bucks to play really well. I mean, like Chris Middleton will usually play pretty well, but you need either a big game from like Drew Holiday or like Brooke Lopez even. You need someone else to play really well, not just
Yeah,
Middleton and
you
Giannis.
you need Lopez to dog Blake Griffin like you had predicted.
I want to give Blake Griffin some credit real quick because he's actually probably been one of their. I know he's just technically a starter. I'm pretty sure, but he's a really big role player to that team this series, and he's played, I think, above expectations for what's been expected of him. And
Yep.
I think that's changed the series a little bit, but yeah, I think it's on the rest of the Bucks. I don't think Giannis or Chris Middleton really have much to prove. They showed that last game. They both had, I think, almost 40 each. It's on the rest of the team to do something, and KD needs to be contained. Um,
Yeah,
I put
Giannis needs to catch the ball.
I would I think similar to you, I'd put PJ Tucker on him for the first two quarters, and then maybe third or fourth quarter put Giannis on him.
Hmm.
But one thing's for sure, actually I'm gonna go with the controversial pick. As much as I want the Bucks to win, I'm gonna pick the Nets to win the night, and they advance to East Conference Finals.
I don't think that's really controversial because I think most people anticipate the Nets beating the Bucks to begin with.
Well, I think right now, if we're lining up stars versus stars, you have Giannis and Middleton versus KD and Harden, right? And Harden's
Yeah.
not. I would say he's at like 30% healthy right now, and he's playing. So
The-
it's not really a star playing right now. So I think it's two stars versus one almost in a way.
yeah, but this may sound blasphemous, but I think a lot of people out there would take a 20% Harden over Chris Middleton.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I think Middleton also has something to prove tonight. If he can, I mean, he was guarding KD a little bit, but if he could just play. He's got those random nights where he could score like 50, and I would like to see that potentially too. But
I,
whatever it
I
takes to
still,
win.
I still got to put this out there for Giannis because this is the reason why sometimes the Bucks are struggling in these situations and why Middleton has to like step up in games. Giannis, you need to take your game to the next level and improve your perimeter shooting. Add some more skill to the game. We know you're well conditioned. We know you're a phenomenal athlete. We know you're strong, a power driving to the rim. I'm definitely not saying to relinquish all of that because that puts pressure on defenses. But if you add like more skill aspects, better a pull up jump shot, that stuff, that'll make it even harder for defenses to stop you, open up the game more. It'll open up your driving lanes more and help everyone else around you. Like we've seen right now, you're showing us consistency in what you excel at and what you have excelled at since your younger days over the past couple of years. But now at this point, it's becoming redundant, and we can see if you're going to be the best player in the game, which honestly, with your build and stuff, yeah, you everyone
He's
recognize you have
capable.
potential for it. To get to that point, you need to take your game to the next level.
I think it's I don't think it's just that too. I think he needs to play smarter. He's making bad decisions late in games, and he's dropping the ball too. He's
Yeah.
fumbling the ball. I think there was at least 4 or 5 turnovers where he's dropping the ball by his legs and it's rolling out of bounds. And you can't do that late in the game. It's going to cost you the game.
I think part of the poor decisions is a result of the limitations in his abilities as well.
Yeah, I think Middleton right now is their guy in late in the game
Yeah,
because he's consistent. You know he's not gonna make that mistake. He's gonna at least put them in the best scenario possible, and it's whether or not he makes that shot.
yeah.
So without further ado, should be a great series tonight, or a great game tonight. We'll see if the Nets end the series, and the next time we talk, we'll probably see potential semifinals matchups. All right, like, comment, and subscribe. We will catch you for the next video.
Peace.